Welcome on this new course on data and personalization. We will see how personalization can be seen as an extreme form of segmentation and with all the benefits that segmentation can bring. Then we will see how connected objects basically expand personalization beyond behavior. And then for the two last parts, we'll see maybe the limits of personalization in two sequences. So first, how can we perceive the benefits of a data set that would include very precise data on individuals or very accurate data on entities? The reason is quite simple. It's because the same way segmentation helps transforming a crowd of data points into subgroups that have some meaning. Well, you could think of personalization as the same approach, but pushed to the extreme. Instead of having subgroups, you have as many subgroups as you have of single entities. This allows for a very differentiated treatment of all of these entities so that you can provide the best service or the best product to each single entity in the best tailored way. So it's not something that has to be done in the future. It already exists. Basically, the major domains where you find that are in ads. So each ad now is, many of the ads today are displayed in an individual way, depending on who's visiting the page, at which time, and which page this is. You also have the major platforms on the internet, such as Yahoo, Amazon, or Netflix. They basically, all their web pages are slightly different from one user to the next. So you don't have just one template that would look alike for each of the visitors of the web page. Each of the visitor gets a personalized experience based on their past visits and based on any other information the platform has already collected on you. And finally, the last area where personalization has made great advances is in the delivery of news. So you have news services that specialize actually in providing for each of their users a personalized package of news. This is made with the full acknowledgement of the user, who often is asked to provide a list of their interests when they start using the service. So why is not everybody doing that, providing a personalized experience to each of their customers or users? The reason is first inertia. It takes a lot of organizational dynamics to actually get that into place. But the argument you will hear most often is operational costs, such that, for example, you will hear that for an email campaign, you can't send a different email personalized in every aspect to every user. You need to segment maybe your email basis into 5 or 6 groups, but that's it. Beyond that, operational costs of differentiating the email content would be too high. My answer to that is that I'm a bit skeptical about that. I think that yes, you have technological challenges to actually implement a personalized service or product delivery, but if the industry could deliver mass customization it's comparatively harder than doing that in a software environment where you don't have a hard material requirements. So it should be able to do that, and I would expect companies to provide this kind of personalized services even more in the future. So this is a page that shows the a page from Amazon, the website, and that shows the extent that can be reached with personalization. The green arrows basically show every space on the page that displays in a different way for each of the customers, and you see that it's quite, I mean, you have a number of items that are differentiated. Okay, so we were short on that, but that's a key point, right? If you can achieve personalization, that's like segmentation on steroids. That's really powerful. You can increase customer satisfaction. But the next generation of personalization is already there. It's about personalizing not just customers are as represented by their clicks and behavior and purchase transactions. It's also identifying them through their bodies, through the physical experience of their body. So it's something which arriving with, I mean, you heard all of these catchphrases such as Internet of Things, the quantified self-movement, wearable technologies, and connected objects. All of that just means that you have more and more objects that are equipped with sensors, and these sensors collect data about individuals and their surroundings. It strongly suggests that personalization can be increased based on all of these measurements, because each individual will basically reflect a different situation. Just a short table to show you that it's actually with us today. Your location is monitored through your mobile phone. So if you are interested, just Google location history for Google Maps. So just Google that, and you will see that your whole movements and travels and car rides are actually preserved by Google Maps, and you can check where you were up to 6 months ago or several years before. Movement, you have these armbands now that help if you run or if you just want to check how many steps you walk per day. You have armbands that allow you to do that, and one example would be the Fuel Band by Nike. Your heartbeat can be monitored too, so you have body scales that just when you step on them, of course they weight, they measure how much you weight, but they can also through the skin of your feet, they can measure your heart rate and record that. Your perspiration, so basically when you sweat while running, while you have a wristwatch that does that, it's peak by basis. Withings has launched Aura, which is a tracking device that records and measures how well you sleep, and that displays sound and lights according to your sleep profile in order to improve how well you sleep. And finally, in a very mass market object, the iPhone 5, you can now unlock your phone by applying a fingerprint on the screen. So that's also a very accurate measure of who's using the phone, because the fingerprint, without any ambiguity, identifies the user. So it's, I mean, how mainstream is that? You know, the collection of bodily measurements and intimate measures. Well, Nicholas Felton, who is a data analyst and a graphic designer in the US, is a bit of the extreme case. He, since 2005, I think, he he started collecting as much data as he could on his routine behavior. For example, each time he keeps doing that. Each time he meets somebody, he just writes that on his mobile phone. He has things that track his movement, etc. Well, there is a video showing all of that.
The further you look, the more things can be quantified or are already being quantified. I've counted all the places that I've been.
New York, Palo Alto.
All the people I've been with.
488, Julie.
Roddy, Mom. The restaurants and bars visited.
Italian, Japanese.
How many miles I've walked.
7.4 miles.
All the beverages I've consumed.
Coffee, beer.
Books I've read, music I've listened to.
Are you obsessive compulsive?
I think there's a difference between being obsessive compulsive and having obsessive compulsive disorder. So I certainly don't have OCD. I'm an information designer who uses data to communicate and tell stories. I previously worked at Facebook, and for nearly the last decade, I've been producing annual reports that allow me to play with data visualizations summarizing a year of my life. For example, I've rendered an average day in a graph that shows my activities hour by hour. For the most part, collecting all this data means taking notes as events happen and putting them into a calendar. My process has evolved to include custom apps that allow me to manually record what I'm doing over time. I started wearing a Fitbit that counts how many steps I take. Nowadays, I also wear a Nike Fuel Band and the Basis watch, which keeps track of not only physical activity, but my heart rate and sleeping. In my car, I use a sensor called Automatic that gives me feedback on gas mileage and where I go. On my computer, I'm currently using an app called Rescue Time, and this will track the apps that I use and the websites that I visit, and actually gives me a productivity score at the end of each day. I've also been playing with a breathalyzer. This year and last year have been very fraught for people who work with data, and my fear is that people will go into a state of ignorance about all the data that's being generated. When we shop at the grocery store, they have access to our entire history of purchases and could know plenty about what we're most likely to buy and the nutritional value of all this food. Your mobile phone company, as a means of delivering calls to you, knows pretty accurately where you and your phone are at all times. All this data represents a piece of your identity that's being either traded or manipulated or, in some cases used against you. And so knowing who has access to this data and what's being done with it is really important.
And each year he basically sells a report that in a couple of pages summarizes all the data that he collected about himself. So he called that the Feltron report. It's interesting to know that he's not a maniac. He actually was hired by Facebook. And he left now, but he has basically, he echoes a larger movement that also happens in companies. What can we do, and what should we do, and what should we not do maybe with these new forms of personalization. Well, if you just, I mean, there are many news reports showing that industries and companies and health insurances and insurance in general are thinking hard about how to use these bodily measurements to actually improve on their offer or create new offers. So that's the example of Autodesk, which is a large IT company that invited volunteers and their employees to wear armbands to track how many steps they were walking during the day and how much movement did they take. So this was part of a company challenge, but you see how it can be used to actually monitor the health of your employees. And maybe, I mean, one of the suggestions they had was to offer health insurance plans at a lower price to those individuals who display a healthier behavior in terms of how much they walk per day. That's, I mean, just check the news reports. That's something which is just happening now in many companies. Okay, so in this second and last part of the presentation, I like to highlight the limits, or at least what we should be careful about with extreme personalization. So personalization, when you push it at the extreme, is great because each individual gets a perfectly tailored product or service corresponding exactly to their needs. So that's great. But this has three negative consequences. The first one is the loss of serendipity. Serendipity is, first it's a funny word, but then it's also something that designates the fact that something interesting and exciting and nice happens by surprise, without planning, without any anticipation. And when you have a service and a product which is perfectly tailored to you, serendipity can disappear. You will always match what you need without any deviation from your needs. So you will never be surprised by something that slightly misfits your needs. And that might be perceived as an inconvenience because that's how you make progress. That's how you discover new things. That's when you step outside of the way sometimes. Extreme personalization would maybe just blind you to what doesn't fit your worldview perfectly. The second aspect that personalization can bring is, or can destroy, is the sense of community. So just to give an example, when you read the Financial Times, maybe you don't want it to be personalized exactly to your profile. So if you would read the Financial Times online, it could be, from a technological point of view, it would be very easy to look at who you are as a reader and then just show you the articles that would suit your interests. But if the Financial Times would do that, they would just delete the Financial Times experience, which is an editor or many editors curating a set of articles for their readers, and that's the brand of Financial Times. That's the kind of articles they push to everybody. And you would lose this brand and this quality if anybody would have, and everyone would have their own different views on the Financial Times. The Financial Times would just disappear as a uniform brand. So that's why many newspapers are reluctant to develop algorithmic editorship. And finally, extreme personalization can bring a sense of diminished autonomy, and that's related to the two previous things we discussed. Because if you have a company that basically provides to you exactly what the company thinks suits you best, you lose the ability to actually choose by yourself or to rearrange things until they fit your needs. So that's best illustrated with something that happened in September 2014 when Twitter users reacted negatively at the proposition that Twitter would curate the newsfeed that they see on their wall. At the moment, Twitter is basically displaying whatever the persons you follow are writing. Twitter made a suggestion that Twitter themselves would basically choose which news item is more relevant and display that on top of your newsfeed. But that would basically deprive Twitter users of a sense of their autonomy. So yeah, personalization comes with limits too. And finally, I like to conclude to make sure that we don't fall into an easy trap that personalization would be possible only with data. So it's completely not the case, right? Data can help personalizing services, but it's not a precondition to achieve a personalized service of a high quality. And the best example would be a comparison between Zappos and Amazon, where Amazon has a strong culture of data and measurements, whereas Zappos emphasizes the personal experience of their employees and of their customers as the main metrics almost. So it's really, it should be very clear that the best quality and the best human experience is most often delivered by humans themselves and not just by an algorithmically curated feed. Doesn't mean that it's an either-or situation. My point of view is that data analysis is a very good support tool at the service of human-delivered service. That's where you get the best of both worlds, the power of data analysis that can basically get quickly an aggregated view on huge data sets and a huge lot of information, and yet you have humans making the final decisions and the final delivery of the product or the service itself, because nothing replaces somebody smiling. Well, on this optimistic note, I leave you there. Thanks.